The 2024 Kia Seltos is one of the best values in the subcompact crossover segment, and in this video I'll explain why, as well as going over the exterior, the interior, how it drives, the fuel economy you'll get, and also the pricing and how it compares to the competition. But getting into the exterior here, first off, I gotta say it looks great. So the Seltos has been around since the 2021 model year. It got a refresh here for 2024 though, and gets a really nice front end redo where it's a little bit sharper here for the headlights. You have a wider grille, you have a sportier front bumper here with a little bit more aggression to it. And I really love this bluish gray color too. It looks really nice, but a really nice look up front there. Coming down to the sides, you have some nice 18-inch wheels, and I really also like how you have on this SX trim, which is the top trim, you have this black roof and A-pillar combo. And then going out towards the back there, you can also see that you have the C-pillar treatment there with the chrome and black, which I think is a nice look. And then they also switched up the back end a lot as well. You have these new full-width tail lamps there in the back that are a cool look, and you know, a new rear bumper and all that. Just really freshens up the look of the Seltos to make it almost unrecognizable from the previous pre-refresh version in the back there. And overall, I think that the Seltos is a really nice look. It's a little bit larger than some of the other competitors in this segment. It's just a substantial, rugged, good-looking little crossover. Moving on to the interior of the Seltos here, it mostly hasn't changed over the past few years aside from getting a big tech upgrade. So the big news here for the Seltos for 2024 is you get these double 10.3-inch screens for both the digital gauge cluster and also another one here for the touchscreen that controls all the infotainment stuff. And it's in this nice enclosure. It's one single piece and is a really cool look. Otherwise though, all the same great stuff from the Seltos continues on from the pre-refresh version, which means it's one of the roomiest interiors in its segment with a nice sized back seat, a good sized trunk, one of the biggest cargo areas in this segment as well. And so it's really impressive from a space standpoint. If you're looking for something and you want to have a decent amount of space for adults, but you still don't need to go up to something that's bigger with the compact class, which also is more expensive, this really is one of the strongest in this segment for that reason alone. These digital gauge clusters are really nice. There's not a whole lot of customization in them, but they look really good. And I do wish they would do a little more customization in them, but overall still should be totally fine. And the touchscreen also works really well. The only downfall of this screen is the fact that it doesn't have any kind of wireless Apple CarPlay or wireless Android Auto. You have to plug your phone in order to have that functionality. Most of the other competitors these days do offer the wireless thing, and also other Kia and Hyundai products have started to roll out wireless CarPlay here with some 2024 model year vehicles, but this one doesn't have it just yet. It needs, I think, the new software and the new screens in order to do that. So not sure if the Seltos is going to get it here in the next year or two or not, but in the meantime, got to plug your phone in here. Otherwise though, it all works great, and I really like the way everything's arranged here. All those little tiles you see are customizable, and you can drag them around and swap them to different pages and all that if you'd like. And it's all really nice. The only thing I will say is that this little shelf here to rest your finger on while you're using the screen is certainly nice to have. It helps you to stabilize your fingers while you're using the touch screen. But as you can see, it does like to attract some fingerprints. Not the best type of surface treatment for a little shelf that your finger's going to be on all the time. I wish that was a little bit more of a rugged plastic or something that just doesn't show fingerprints as much. Outside of that, you do also have a fair amount of gloss black plastic here, which also doesn't age well and gets really gross looking really fast. But otherwise, it's great that you have volume and tune knobs still and all your usual basic climate control functions and a good amount of storage space. Although I will say that the bottle holders here in the doors, don't even really, it looks like it's a bigger pocket than it is, because when just sliding my, pretty skinny little bottle here in the cup holder, it just doesn't seem to do a very good job with that bottle holder. So a little bit of an awkward shape for that. But otherwise, me being 5'9", sitting behind myself, I still have a couple inches of legroom to spare. And you also now have standard USB-C jacks back there for that second row, 2 of them. Although up front here, you're still stuck with a regular USB-A if you want to use CarPlay and Android Auto. There is another USB-C jack up front here, but that is only for charging. There's also a wireless charging pad here, and it's actually really nice and rubberized. And I used that on a little road trip here this week, and my phone never lost contact. A lot of other wireless charging pads do not do a good job of keeping your phone in place and actually charging your phone. This is actually one of the best ones I've ever tested, to be totally honest. Really well done wireless charging pad, and I think that is a worthwhile thing to have here on these upper trims. And this top SX trim also has this Bose stereo, and it sounds pretty good. It's not the most amazing stereo, if I'm honest, but it is pretty good, and it's nice you have a Bose upgrade here available. And so overall, I think this whole interior is actually, pretty nicely done. And, you also, by the way, like this one doesn't have ventilated seats, but you can get ventilated seats in these, which is something that most other competitors don't offer. But I mean, nice, soft, comfortable seats. I love that they're perforated. With this, synthetic leather, and overall, just everything about this interior just feels really nice. And the one last thing I'll mention for parents is that a forward-facing car seat does fit in here okay. The only thing is that, again, we're talking about a subcompact crossover. There still isn't a ton of room for the front passenger, and so my wife made it work this week, but she didn't love it. And even me sitting in that passenger seat, again, being 5'9", I have maybe an inch of legroom to spare if I'm being generous there. But really, it's your knees are up against the dashboard there, so not ideal if you're gonna have someone in that passenger seat all the time with a car seat in the back there. But it's doable, but I would recommend trying to get something a little bit bigger if you can. But let's start up and go for a drive. The Seltos here has the usual Kia key they've used for a few years now, just with the new logo on it there. But I really love these keys. I love the little trigger thing you have there at the top, and just a few buttons there on it, but overall just a really nice key. But of course it is keyless access, keyless entry, and push button start here in these upper trims. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and it starts right up. All right, so setting off here in the Seltos. So the first thing that you'll notice about it, I think, is the nice high sitting position you have here in it. You have really good visibility as well. So you have pretty thin A-pillars here, just a great view over the hood and all that. Great view out of the sides, view out of the back is nice and easy. It's just a very easy vehicle to drive. It also feels pretty small as far as, parking it and things like that. A great little city kind of runaround vehicle, very easy to park in tight spaces, and just, gonna be really easy to live with. And other things to note here, the biggest change for the Seltos for 2024, at least in my opinion, is that it gets a new transmission. So it previously had a 7-speed dual clutch transmission, which you could kind of feel the clutch engaging, and it just wasn't always very smooth. This is a regular now 8-speed torque converter automatic, and that is going to be so much smoother, and also actually helps a little bit with efficiency as well. Not on the EPA's ratings, it actually lost a few as far as the EPA's ratings, but in the real world, it actually seems like it gets better fuel economy, honestly. So I'll talk more about that in a few minutes. But other things here that I really love, so you have a really nicely done brake pedal. It's nice and predictable and responsive, feels good. Throttle response also does exactly what you're expecting it to do, and everything about this vehicle just feels exactly how you want it to feel. At least in my mind, there was no surprises, there was no odd behaviors. It just drove the way you wanted it to. And honestly, that's something that's not always a given. It's something that other vehicles struggle to even do. So, I just really like that this whole vehicle was just very friendly to drive and live with. And steering also feels really nice. It's not overly heavy like Mazda CX-30s are. And it also, just has a nice amount of feel to it, and just felt really good too. Another really nice thing is that you have acoustic front glass now in the Seltos, which means it's a little bit quieter in here than some of the other competitors. And during my week here of driving the Seltos, I do have to say that it's a little quieter in my opinion than like a Subaru Crosstrek, a Toyota Corolla Cross, things like that. This feels a little more refined. I don't think it's quite as refined as the Mazda CX-30, which I still think is the most luxurious feeling one in this segment. But overall, just, feels nicer than you might be expecting it as far as the refinement goes. But I put it up into the sport driving mode, and let's turn down onto this back road and see how it accelerates. And here we go. Okay, pretty responsive. Just had to give me a downshift, and then it starts moving pretty nicely. It is punchy. This is going to be one of the quickest vehicles in its segment. It is really a good amount of punch. So it runs a 1.6 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. It does 195 horsepower and 195 pound-feet of torque as well. And that'll give you a 6.9 seconds 0 to 60 time, which is pretty good for a vehicle like this. And again, most of the other stuff in this segment is going to be in the 8-second range. Some are even as slow as like 10 seconds if you're talking about like the base engine Subaru Crosstrek and others. And so, I mean, it's actually a good amount of performance, and that turbo also really helps because it means you have a good amount of punch even in the mid-range, and when you're trying to pass people and all that, you don't have to, have the engine rev up like crazy quite as much as some of the other competitors. and it's able to hold speed on the highway a little bit easier as a result of having that turbo punch to rely on. And so, you know, it was just a really nice thing to drive around, and we did a lot of highway driving this week as well. Most of the miles were on the highway, honestly, and it just is a really good highway cruiser because of the fact that you have that extra turbo grunt. And some of the other competitors, like even the CX-30 or the 2.5 liter motor you get in the upgraded versions of the Subaru Crosstrek, those are still going to be hunting around and, you know, being a little more hard-working in order to give you that same kind of performance. And so it just all feels really good, and also puts the power down really well. You have an all-wheel drive system as standard, and in these turbo trims, it's also standard. Strangely, if you go for the middle trims, the S or the EX, then all of a sudden you get front-wheel drive as standard, and you have to pay $1,500 extra for all-wheel drive on those two trims. But all the other trims, including the base one, have all-wheel drive as standard, which is interesting. Also, if you don't need this much power, there is a base engine that's in those lower trims outside of the X line and the SX here. That'll give you a 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine. It has about 146 horsepower and about 132 pound-feet of torque. So that's going to be a lot less power. If you don't need to have the most punch, though, that should be totally sufficient in those lower trims. But coming up some corners here, I always take, let's see how the Seltos handles. So it handles itself really well. We have two 35 wide tires all around on this vehicle. We have 18-inch wheels here, which certainly gives you a little bit of a better, you know, ride and handling package compared to some other competitors that might have slightly smaller wheels. And it just, you know, all feels really good. You also do have a brake-based torque vectoring kind of system going on here that kind of helps you with turn-in and makes it a little bit sportier feeling. And, you know, those are nice things to have. I mean, we're still talking about a subcompact crossover. It's not a sports car. You know, it's pretty light though. These weigh just under 3,300 pounds. So, you know, you don't have a lot of weight to throw around or anything. So that's certainly good. So if you are in a hurry and you're, you know, darting around here, you know, it's going to keep up with you pretty well and, you know, be totally willing. I mean, it's happy to dive in. It's happy to, you know, give me the handling I'm looking for here. There's a little bit of lean in it, which you expect out of a, you know, vehicle that is usually going to be just a family crossover, you know, but it does a really good job, and overall I'm really happy with the handling in these. And now out on the highway here in the Seltos, it's a really nice cruiser as well. Like I said, I put almost about, I'd say over 250 miles on the highway here in the Seltos. It's a really nice highway companion. Again, not too much wind noise or road noise, and the only thing I will say is that the top XS trim has this highway drive assist feature, which is Kia's version of adaptive cruise control and lane keep assist, which does do a steering assist type thing. It's not hands-off or anything. You still have to have your hands on the wheel, and it will, you know, tell you to keep your hands on the wheel if it senses that they are off the wheel. But I mean, the system still isn't great. Now, I've had a lot of experiences with you know, the Kia and Hyundai system in the past, and it's always been kind of underwhelming to me most of the time. And unfortunately, my time with the Seltos reinforced that same opinion. It's still, you know, it was okay with keeping track of the road lines, but there were a few times where it lost track a little more frequently than some other vehicles from other competitors. But the main problem is just that it doesn't hold road lines, which is what a lane keep assist system should do, is keep you within the road lines, you know, unless you are overriding the system. And yet this system, you know, if you leave it to its own devices and just kind of let your hands rest on the steering wheel, it really will go over the road lines. And so it's not a trustworthy system, unfortunately. Now we have a gentle corner here, and it's doing okay. I mean, I'm definitely babysitting it because we have cars right next to us here, and I don't trust it again. But it's, you know, kind of hit or miss. Now, it's not consistently going over road lines, but if it does it once, then like my faith in the system is gone, because then I can't trust it to safely, you know, give me those little bumpers, so to speak, to, you know, make sure that I'm always in those road lines. So, you know, it's a nice thing to have. It does take out some of the fatigue on your drive. Just don't count on it to, you know, be reliable and always keep you within those road lines. But, you know, whenever we're discussing how this compares to other systems, a lot of the other competing systems, that is one of the #1 priorities, and they don't go over the road lines no matter what. They always make sure, even on windy highways here like we have in southwestern Pennsylvania, it's still, most of the other systems will make sure that you're in those road lines no matter what. So, you know, that's the one big knock I can give on this system. Otherwise, though, it's pretty good and pretty smooth as far as, you know, adjusting for cars that pull in front of you and, you know, things like that. So it's fine, but certainly not a must-have feature in my opinion. But you know, if you're going for one of these SX trims anyway, it's a nice bonus. Otherwise, as far as other safety tech goes, you do get automatic emergency braking and lane keeping assist as standard. You also get auto high beams as standard. And then everything except the base trim gets the blind spot monitoring system. Unfortunately, it's not standard, but everything except that base gets that. So that's nice to have. And I mean, you definitely want to have blind spot monitoring, even in a vehicle like this, which is pretty easy to see out of. It's always nice to have that extra peace of mind, since it does come with the rear cross traffic alert as well, to make sure that when you're backing out of busy parking lots and stuff, you don't have any surprises. But one thing about the Seltos that was very impressive when I was out here on the highway was my fuel economy. So these are only rated at 25 mpg in the city, 27 on the highway, and 26 combined. But in my time in that highway drive that I did, which also I was doing it on higher speed limit highways where it's 70 mile per hour speed limits, I was actually able to get 29.2 mpg on the strictly highway drive. And now even here, doing the driving I've been doing here in this video, and some other around town stuff as well this week, I'm still getting 28.7 mpg. So I mean, that is real. I mean, I am almost 2 mpg over the highway rating. And if you watch any of my other reviews, typically I get 1 to 2 mpg less than the city rating in most of my driving. And so the fact that I'm doing such good fuel economy in this, I think is a testament to, again, having that extra gear in the transmission, as well as just this motor, which it got a little bit of a tweak here for 2024. It got the 20 more horsepower to bump you to that 195 horsepower number. But the motor itself also, it's got a different bore and stroke than the pre-refresh version, and it's got a bunch of different stuff, a bigger turbo, a bunch of other changes, and I think those changes really have gone a long way to make this a more efficient motor. And it's really not even the same motor as before, and it just is really impressive that you're getting such good efficiency out of this. I mean, there's a few others that'll do on paper at least supposedly similar fuel economy, although in the real world, again, I've seen that most of them do worse. But the one I will say is, Toyota's the only one that really offers a hybrid in this segment, with the Toyota Corolla Cross Hybrid, and that I was getting way more fuel economy than this. And that's only about $1,000 more expensive if you are someone who wants that better fuel economy. But the last thing to mention here is that pricing and how it compares to the competition. So as far as pricing goes, the Seltos here starts at $25,715, and then this one, as tested, is $31,885, with basically everything being fully loaded. This one doesn't have the sunroof package, which gives you a sunroof and also gives you the power tailgate for like $1,200. It also gives you ventilated seats in that package, which would be nice to have if you live in a place where you have a lot of hot weather. But even still, I mean, this price point, it is, in my opinion, like I said in the beginning of this video, one of the best values in this segment, just because when you look at any of the other competitors, all the competition is going to be pretty much $2,000 more expensive. Now, if you add in the sunroof and you add in the ventilated seats, then you do get closer to the pricing of all those competitors. But all the other ones, similarly equipped, are going to be right at $34,000. And now those other ones will probably give you that sunroof for that $34,000, but like I said, most others don't give you ventilated seats and all that. And the fact that you can get this top trim and not have to have a sunroof or not have to have the ventilated seats and all that is also nice if you're someone who doesn't value those things. It's great that you do have some options here within this package. But all of the most popular and my favorite competitors in this segment, like the Mazda CX-30, the Subaru Crosstrek, all those types of competitors, even like the Hyundai Kona, which is brand new for 2024. I just spent a week in that recently. They all have their own unique little niches and pros and cons, but they're all going to be about $34,000. And I mean, the Kona, for example, has bigger screens up front here, and it's the wireless CarPlay, and so there are some other little things there that if you're not worried about $1,000 or $2,000 difference, those things might be worth paying a little bit extra for. But at the end of the day, the Seltos is just a little bit less expensive than most of the other competitors, and also it offers a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, which none of the other competitors outside of that Hyundai Kona offers. And that's also going to be huge because, while obviously the Toyotas and the Hondas and stuff like that should have, pretty good reliability and be, some of the best, honestly, maybe even better than the Hyundai and the Kia here. But, they don't give you that warranty coverage on the powertrain like Hyundai and Kia do. And so, it's just a nice little extra perk here of the Seltos as well to give you that extra peace of mind here. And so that's why it's really tough to argue any of the other competitors being better, because honestly, most of them have less horsepower. Most of them aren't turbocharged. Most of them, some of them have, again, some nicer interior stuff for some of them, but you know, they all are going to be a little bit more expensive. And, you know, the only thing I will say is, yeah, if you do value good fuel economy, for only about $1,000 more, the Corolla Cross Hybrid gives you, you know, most of the same stuff. An interior that isn't quite as impressive as this. You know, the screens are smaller and stuff, but you know, just gives you that really good fuel economy and also gives you a very similar amount of punch. It just gives you that extra punch from the electrification rather than from a turbocharger. But, you know, that was another one I really enjoyed spending a week with the Corolla Cross Hybrid. But outside of that, you know, I really don't see a case to be made for any of the others, honestly, over the Seltos here. And I think the Seltos is just a really solid combo here and a very compelling option in this segment. So yeah, I mean, the only last thing I will mention is if you don't need to have all-wheel drive, you know, one of the other ones that really comes in so much cheaper is the Chevy Trax and the Buick Envista. And, you know, it's not as much power in those. You know, the tech isn't as nice as it is here in this, in my opinion. But, you know, those are like $25,000 to $30,000, you know, fully loaded, topped. And so, I mean, it's going to be another one worth considering if you don't need all-wheel drive, because those do not offer it at all. So yeah, overall, whenever you cross shop the Seltos with everything else out there, I think it is, like I said in the beginning, one of the best values in the subcompact crossover segment, and I really enjoyed my week with it here. Let me know your thoughts on the Seltos in the comments below. Thank you all very much for watching. Huge thanks to Kia for providing me here with this Seltos to review for you guys today. Yeah, thank you all very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.